You don't have to do this, she whispered. You don't even know if I'm innocent. He met her eyes. I know what it looks like when the whole world decides you guilty before you say a word, he replied quietly. Sometimes that's all I need to know. She blinked. The judge cleared his throat. All right, he said. Let's proceed. And just like that, the janitor was back in court. This time, not in the gallery, not in the library, not in secret, but at the table where futures were decided. The weeks that followed didn't look like a fairy tale. They looked like work. Long nights at Elena's penthouse dining table, not that Malik cared about the view. Stacks of documents replaced the neatly arranged centerpieces. Emails projected on a screen. Spreadsheets spread out like battle maps. Elena watched, half in awe, half in quiet shame, as the man who scrubbed the courthouse floors circled clauses with a red pen and muttered case names from memory. This indemnity clause doesn't add up, he'd say. Why is your signature here? When your calendar says you were in Tokyo that day. She'd frown. I never saw that contract, she'd answer. My father's people handled all the property stuff. He'd nod. Convenient, he'd murmur. For them, piece by piece they found a different story buried under the one the world loved to tell. A web of executives who slipped things under Elena's name. Emails she'd been blind copied on and never actually read. Safety inspections signed by someone forging digital approvals. Someone had used her as a shield. Not because she was evil, because she was easy, an easy face for people to hate. An easy target for a system that liked its villains photogenic and simple. As they worked, barriers started to crack. One night, around 2 a.m., Elena stared at the files but wasn't really seeing them. You know what they say about me, right? She asked. Malik didn't look up. I've heard enough, he replied. They say I was born with everything, she continued. Rich, spoiled, untouchable. She gave a small, shaky laugh. But my mother died when I was 8, she said quietly. My father raised me in boardrooms, not birthday parties. I learned to read stock reports before I learned to ride a bike. She swallowed. When the building collapsed, she whispered, I thought, if it's my fault, then I deserve whatever they give me. Malik finally looked at her. That's not how this works, he said softly. Responsibility isn't about who can handle the blame. It's about who made the choices. She studied him. And you? She asked. What do they say about you? He smiled without humor. They don't say much, he answered. They look at the uniform. They see how dark my skin is. They see the mop. They fill in the rest. She nodded slowly. Maybe we're both wearing uniforms that people think tell the whole story, she murmured. Mine just costs more. They both chuckled once. Tired, but a little less alone. In court, the prosecutor underestimated Malik. He thought a janitor at the table meant an easy win. But every time he tried to twist a fact, Malik would slide a note across the table. Ask about the email timestamp. Ask who was physically in the room. Ask about the bonus structure that quarter. Elena, finding her voice through his questions, started to fight for herself. Not with theatrics. With clarity. I signed things I shouldn't have signed, she admitted on the stand one day. Not because I didn't care. Because I trusted people who told me, don't worry about it. We'll handle it, that's on me. She let that sit. But skipping inspections, she continued, forging approvals? Moving money into shell companies? That's not negligence. That's intent. And I was never in those rooms. The prosecutor tried to rattle her. Isn't it convenient, he sneered, that every time something looks bad, you say someone else handled it? Elena swallowed. If I wanted to be convenient, she said quietly, I would have settled this quietly months ago. I would have paid whatever they asked and disappeared to an island. I'm here because people died. And if I was the reason, I need to know that. And if I wasn't, then I won't let the real culprits hide behind my name. Malik watched the jurors. Some leaned forward. He could see it in their faces. They were starting to listen. Not to the billionaire caricature, to the human being. Outside the courthouse, protesters still shouted. Some screamed for her head. Others slowly brought signs that said things like real accountability and check the facts. One news anchor ran a story not just on the heiress, but on the janitor. They called him the unlikely legal mind. The courtroom janitor. The man who stepped up. They didn't know half of it. They didn't know about the nights he fell asleep on the bus, legal pad on his lap. The mornings he whispered case citations under his breath while scrubbing toilets. They just knew a narrative they could sell. But one person saw more. At the back of the courtroom one afternoon, a little girl in braids swung her legs from a wooden bench. Nia. Her eyes lit up when she saw her dad walk in, not with a mop, but with a stack of folders. He caught sight of her and almost lost his composure. After recess, they met in the hallway. "Daddy," she squealed, launching into his arms. "You're on TV." "Grandma says you're a lawyer now." He laughed, holding her tight. "I'm not a lawyer," he said softly. "Not yet. You're helping that lady," Nia said, eyes wide. "The one everyone's mad at. Why?" He thought for a moment. "Because sometimes," he said slowly, "the people everybody's mad at are guilty, and sometimes they're just the easiest person to blame." She nodded seriously, like a judge. "Are you going to win?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "I'm going to tell the truth," he replied, "and hope that's enough." The verdict day came. Rain hammered the courthouse steps. Umbrellas bloomed like dark flowers. News cameras formed a wall. Inside, the courtroom felt colder. The judge read the charges. The jury filed in. "On the count of criminal negligence leading to loss of life," the foreperson said, voice steady, "we find the defendant, Elena Sterling." A breath held. "Not guilty." Cries exploded in the room, some angry, some relieved. Malik closed his eyes. "Not in triumph, in gratitude," the foreperson continued. "On the counts of falsified documents and intentional safety violations, we request that the court consider charges against the following executives." He named names. Names that had been comfortable in shadows. Names Malik and Elena had dragged into the light. Outside, some people booed, others cheered. Inside, Elena Sterling turned to Malik. Tears streamed down her face. "You saved my life," she whispered. He shook his head. "No," he said. "The truth did. I just refused to let them bury it." She smiled through the tears. "Well," she said softly, "then let me do something for yours." Weeks later, the courthouse held a small, quiet hearing. No cameras, no crowd, just a committee, a dean, a judge, and one man in a suit that still didn't sit quite right on his shoulders. "Mr. Carter," the chairperson said, "we've reviewed your academic history, your disciplinary record, and your work on the Sterling case." They shuffled papers. "In light of new information," another member added, "and testimony from Dean Parker and Judge Ramirez, we are prepared to offer you reinstatement to complete your legal education. With full tuition support." Malik stared. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. "And upon successful completion of your degree and the bar exam," the chairperson finished, "we see no further obstacle to your admission to the bar." He swallowed. Are you serious?" he asked, voice cracking. Dean Parker smiled. "I told you," she said. "Sometimes the system moves slow, but it moves." Outside the hearing room, Elena waited. "How did it go?" she asked. Malik just grinned. Mia, now clutching a book about famous lawyers her grandma had bought her, jumped up and down. "Daddy's gonna be a real lawyer," she shouted. He knelt in front of her. "Not real," he said gently. "I've always been real. I'm just getting the piece of paper to prove it." She nodded thoughtfully. "Can I still tell people my daddy saved a billionaire?" she asked. He laughed. "If you want." Elena stepped forward. "You did more than save me," she said. "You forced my world to look at itself. And you made me look at mine." She extended a hand. "When you're ready," she added, "there's a position waiting for you, not as my janitor. As my company's chief legal ethics officer." He blinked. "I don't know if I want to work for a billionaire," he said honestly. She nodded, no offense taken. "I get it," she replied. "Just consider it. And if not me, then someone else smart enough to see what I see." He looked at his daughter, at his hands, at the courthouse behind him. "I'll think about it," he said. Because now, for the first time in a long time, he actually had options. Most people only saw the uniform, the green janitor's shirt, the scuffed shoes, the mop bucket. They didn't see the mind behind the eyes. The late nights with law books. The sacrifice that cost him his future so someone else could keep theirs. Just like most people only saw Elena Sterling's headlines. Billionaire heiress. Cold executive. Untouchable. They didn't see the little girl who grew up in boardrooms instead of playgrounds. The woman who signed what she was told to sign because that is what she'd been raised to do. The human being who was terrified she might have let people die by looking the other way. We are quick to write each other's stories. Quicker still to close the book before we've read past the first page. A black single dad with a mop? Must be uneducated. Must be background. A billionaire in a white suit? Must be guilty. Must be the villain. But the truth is rarely that simple. Sometimes the janitor knows the law better than the man in the $1,000 suit. Sometimes the one everyone wants to blame is just the most convenient shield for the truly guilty, and sometimes the person you dismiss without a second glance is the only one brave enough to say, "I will defend you." Not because you're perfect, but because you're a person. The real measure of a society isn't how it treats its stars. It's how it treats the people cleaning the stage. The ones in the uniforms, the ones whose names nobody bothers to learn. And the real measure of us? It's how we treat the people we think we don't need. The janitor, the cashier, the Uber driver, the woman standing alone in front of cameras, about to be devoured. Respect shouldn't be earned by titles. It should be given by default and lost only by choices. Malik's story isn't just about a man who finally got his shot. It's about a world that almost missed him, because it decided long before he spoke what he was worth. So the next time you walk past someone in a uniform, the next time you ready to decide who's guilty before you've heard the facts, remember, you might be looking at the only person in the room brave enough to do what everybody else is too comfortable to try. You might be looking at someone who would fight for you, even if you'd never have glanced at them twice. Under the robes, under the suits, under the janitor's patch and the billionaire's last name, we are all just people. And sometimes the greatest defense we can offer each other is simple: to see each other fully, before the verdict comes in.